and welcome to Labor Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on the new national minimum wage, which was recently passed by the National Assembly and signed by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We also have news stories for you. We will be right back. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has signed the newly approved national minimum wage into law. The President assented to the bill on Monday during the Federal Executive Council meeting, attended by the members of the Cabinet and the leadership of the National Assembly. The President's assent ends months of deliberations between the federal government, organized labor and organized private sector. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, led the National Assembly delegation to the signing ceremony.
The National Minimum Wage Amendment is for the whole nation, for the federal government, for the states, for the local governments, for the private sector, and even for individual employers. So I think this is a great day for the workers in the country. We are not only doubling the minimum wage, we have added something on top. Initially it was 30,000, now it is 70,000. Like I said, this is minimum. This is not maximum. Any employer that has a capacity can pay as much as you want, but no Nigerian worker will offer services and be paid anything less than 70,000 from today.
A scheme whereby you as an employee, while in service.
It's the Retired Workers Forum, organized by one of the licensed pension fund administrators in Nigeria, Premium Pensions Limited in Lagos, with the theme, Embracing Your Golden Years. The pension administrator added that constant engagement with the federal government, lawmakers, employers of labor, and retired workers is one of the ways to keep improving the pension sector.
If you push for price.
Lagos State has been, the big brother, let me use that word, to a lot of states. And when I mean big brother, they've actually been at the forefront of promoting the contributory pension scheme. It's actually been a breath of fresh air, just thinking about how much support we've received from them, because it's also shown us that beyond the federal level, this contributory pension also works at the state. So they are like our golden child when it comes to showcasing to other states.
We're adding a new perspective to it. We are not just only inviting the retirees, we're also inviting those that are going to retire in the next 3 years. So that is what we have today. So the purpose is for them, especially for those that are going to retire in the next 3 years, for them to know what they are supposed to do, those documentation, those things they should do, so that when they retire, they will not have any issues.
The Pension Reform Act brought a lot of changes and innovations into the issue of pension for retired workers. Following the introduction of the Act and how retired workers are responding to the changes, some pensioners shared their experience and how it can be made better.
And we've been with a Premium Pension Limited since 2004, and we are enjoying them.
What I can say is to expand your branch network. Like in Lagos here, being a mega city, you have only 2 branches.
At the event, the retired workers benefited from medical checks put in place by the organizers as part of activities for the interactive forum.
It's an interesting and commendable development, and it has been a long time coming. We've had these discussions for so long, and it is finally here. But while the President has signed this new minimum wage, unfortunately, it does not meet the current reality of the country. And this is because the economic situation has worsened in recent times. We've had skyrocketing inflation. We've had the worst food insecurity ever, and we've just had social conditions that have made sure to put people under, such that 70,000 naira does not offer enough wager to the realities of people. So we had hoped for more, but I mean, 70,000 naira is small. And so why we have 70,000 naira, I think the task at hand is for state authorities to effectively implement even the 70,000 naira that has been put in place now, and to make sure that every worker gets his or her due of that money. Meanwhile, while we try to work on the country, we say that it is not enough to move this minimum wage to 70,000. What is needed for Nigerians to achieve a true state of stability is to offer a living wage that helps people, meet up to the standards of living and meet up to an appreciable standard of living condition. And that would mean the government's true investment in public infrastructure and in the economy of this situation, in the way that of this country, in the way that empowers citizens to truly participate in governance and benefit from the resources that we have been blessed with. Only that can we realize a living wage, that works for everybody.
The reality on the ground is that they still have to do more in the coming period. The 70,000 is a progress, but 70,000 as a minimum wage structure in the civil service is still not enough, given the rate of inflation and the rising cost of living. And so for us, what we are demanding is a living wage. And to put also political office holder under the same wage structure as those in the civil service. That is what we are also demanding. So that what is good for the goods is also good for the gander.
It's good that we eventually have a new minimum wage, even though considering the inflationary trend, it falls short of the expectation of the average worker, and it's really not going to take so many people anywhere. But be that as it may, it is still a welcome development that at least we have something, and that going forward we will be negotiating this every 3 years, which means that at least within the course of the present administration, another new one will probably be negotiated and come effect.
On the Profile Interview segment this week, I was speaking with Festus Osifo, who is the president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria. He also doubles as the president of Pengasan. He brings us up to speed on how organized labor was able to achieve 70,000 naira as a new national minimum wage for workers. He also emphasized the need for state governors and organized private sector to implement the new national minimum wage. It's good to have you on the program, and congratulations to the organized labor on achieving a new national wage for workers across the country. Can you bring us up to speed on how organized labor was able to achieve this new figure in a short period of time?
If you could recall, we started this journey sometime, I think 30th, 31st day of January 2024. So our target then was that we needed to close this out before May Day, which was before May 1st. So that was the target, and that was a communication we passed through to government. But as we were progressing, we now observed that there was some stalling in the process because government was not really ready. Government and the organized private sector, they were not coming forth for us to conclude the conversation. If you could remember, Dana led us to issuing a notice of strike. And from notice of strike, we couldn't still conclude. We went on a very short strike. We came back to the table. So it's been a six-all. Well, finally, we thank God we were able to put this to rest when the president signed this into law sometime last week. And for us, just as we've said, in negotiations are most especially negotiations that are bordering on wages. There are some science around it. There are some principles around it. So when we checked from that of the organized labor, we saw that, okay, the principle was a bit right, but not 100% of what we have desired. So at that point, we decided to call it a shot.
How would you rate the what the figure is? Yes, it's 70,000 naira. From far away, maybe 200,000 naira that organized labor was actually expecting. Looking at the inflation that Nigeria is faced with at the moment, can you tell us what were the parameters that made organized labor settle for 70,000 naira?
Okay, thank you so much, Sharon. As you know, as I was stating earlier, that in negotiations is governed with some principles. Yes, people have asked, oh, we know we are going for 70,000. Why would we have submitted what we submitted to government? But when we started, when you are starting negotiations, you try to size the thought of the other party. So when we looked at the thought of what the other parties were, initially, they didn't want to move beyond 55,000. So their final position at a particular time was 55,000. That's what they were comfortable with. So it was when we learned that they want to settle around 55,000, which was a far cry from our expectation. So that now made us to also overprice. So we submitted what we submitted with a huge markup. So when we submitted that markup as at then, so it now treated them in a way. But when you are doing negotiations of wages, what you look at, what you adjust for is actually inflation. What you look at the end is the inflation value and the inflation figures. So when the chiefs were down, we now sat down together and tried to look at, well, what is the inflation figure from April 2019, when the last minimum wage was signed by former President Muhammadu Buhari. If you could recall, on the 18th day of April 2019, President Buhari signed the 30,000 minimum wage. So if you take that, you will now look for what was the inflation figure the next year, April, which was 2020 April. That gives you something about somewhere around 12.34. You will adjust 30,000 by that. Then when it gets to 2021, you also check what is the inflation figure as of April 2021. So when we checked, it was about 18.12. So we'll now adjust by 18.12 again. Then you'll now look at April 2022. What was the inflation figure? So when you check, it came down to about 16.82. So you also adjust by 16.82. Then April 2023, what was the inflation figure? It was 22.22. You also adjust in that regard. Then in April 2024, what is also the inflation figure? It was 33.69. So when you do this adjustment, that will now give you what we call kind of the net present value of 30,000 naira as at 2024. So when we did that, it came down to about 75,000 naira plus. So when it came down to 75,000 naira plus, and as at that time, that was the reason we did not accept 62,000 naira, because 62,000 naira was very far from 75,000. Where if you compound the inflation from 2019, would have brought you to. So, but when we now got to 70,000 naira, so when we checked 70,000 naira from 75,000 naira, at the end of the day, it's about 92% plus. So we looked at it, okay, 92% restoration is not too bad. But judging 70,000 naira, a lot of us, mostly those that are not in civil service, does not really understand how this is applicable.
That takes me to the next question. It's okay for us to celebrate 70,000 naira as the new national minimum wage. You are the president of Trade Union Congress of Nigeria and also double up as the president of Pengasan. You deal with workers at the senior level. So definitely there are a lot of expectation from workers at that level, especially at the civil service. So would you want to share with us what would be the next line of action to ensure that there is a consequential adjustment that will be related towards this new increments? And is there a timeline for this?
Okay, thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you for that question, because that was where I was actually delving into. Because if you look at the consequential adjustment of this, for example, if you have maybe somebody on grade level 12 or grade level 13 in the civil service, and if that person's salary before the minimum wage, let's assume the salary of that person was somewhere around, let's say, 250,000 naira. So if you apply, because the percentage that we have gotten now is 133%. So the way it works, 133% normally, our demand from labor is that apply 133% from grade level 1 to grade level 17. But really, in civil service, there's no grade level 1. If you have school certificate and you are joining civil service, you are going to join on grade level 4 with school certificate. So we could put that benchmark. That is really where the people that didn't attend university will join civil service, grade level 4. So from that grade level 4, normally they do apply the about 133% that we got to that level. So if that person earns 60,000 naira today, and you apply 133% increment to it, you are going to get something above 130,000 naira. Then also, if you now move up in the ladder, let's say you are in grade level 13, 14 or thereabout, and you are earning, let's say 300,000 naira today. If that they will not apply the 133% to that high grade level. What they will do, that's a consequential adjustment. So what will be done? Let's assume that even 80% is applied to someone that is earning 300,000 naira today. That is going to take that person above 500,000 naira. So the higher you go, the percentage will reduce, but the impact of the naira value is going to go up. So our expectation, and that is what we are doing at the moment, we are following up with National Income, Salaries and Wages Commission to ensure that the right consequential adjustment is done. Because when the right consequential adjustment is done, it is going to move the wages of workers in some category by 133% increment. In some category, it could go up to maybe about 80-90% increment, depending on the end of the ladder that you belong.
Fantastic, and thank you for sharing this information so people have more understanding of how the wage, not wage award now, of how the minimum wage increase affects and impact the lives of people. But now we know the federal government definitely is going to set up that meeting anytime from now. And of course, the timeline will be announced in due course. But we know that it's not just the federal government, it's not just a federal government conversation. We are supposed to have this conversation across the 36 states across the country. Already, the consequential adjustment conversation has not started at the state level. We have some state governors that have announced that they won't be able to pay 70,000 naira as the minimum wage. How would you react to this?
Yes. One of the reasons that we accepted that 70,000, even when you look at, some analysts could look at 70,000 from different parameters. Some look at it vis-a-vis exchange rate, some look at it vis-a-vis inflation. But the standard format of doing that the world over is actually the value of inflation. That's what we've applied. And today, if there is any government at the state level or at the local government level that cannot pay 70,000 naira, is quite regrettable. Because one of the reasons that we accepted the 70,000 naira was actually because we were looking at those lower strata, the local government, the state government, the nano industries, the micro industries. Those were the people we were actually looking at. If it was a conversation between us and the federal government alone for federal workers, we wouldn't have accepted that figure whatsoever. But we're looking at a figure that can be paid across board. So that was why we actually settled for that. But having said that, for us, we think that any state governor that cannot pay 70,000 naira, it should resign. Because Nigeria of today, 70,000 naira cannot even really take people home. Even when you do the consequential adjustment, yes, the challenge that we always have with states, some states that claims to even be paying 30,000 naira, they will not apply the consequential adjustment properly. Sharon, like as I have explained a while ago, that 133% is the percentage that should be applied, maybe from grade level 4 to grade level 8 or 9. Then you will not start reducing it gradually as you move to the top. But what most of these state governors do, because they know that there is no worker actually that is on grade level 1, on grade level 2 in most of these civil service. Where you have most workers, the list is somewhere around grade level 4. So what they do is that they may even say, I will pay 70,000 minimum wage, knowing that the person at grade level 4, his salary is about 55,000 naira or thereabout. in a particular state. They will just move that person to 70,000 and they will claim that they are paying the minimum wage. But that is not how it should be applied. It is that percentage increment that should be applied, not just for you to add little value to those at the lower end of the ladder, and you say that you are paying minimum wage. That no worker in your state is earning less than 70,000. That is not how that minimum wage should be applied. So all we are calling for is that any state government that cannot pay 70,000 naira and apply the consequential adjustment, we have us to contend with, because for us, we are done at the federal level. We are just pushing now for National Income Salaries and Wages Commission to come up with the consequential adjustment and apply it immediately. After then, we are going to move to each of the states to ensure that they do the needful. Because from our computation, we know that they have the resources today to do the needful. Because the cost with which they use in buying Prado Jeep has quadrupled. The cost with which they use in buying computers has quadrupled. The cost with which they use in buying items in their offices, building houses, it has all quadrupled. Then why is it that today we have moved the minimum wage by 133%? That is just slightly higher than double, and they are saying they cannot afford it. No, labor creates wealth, and that we are going to push and ensure that they do.
Would there be a timeline? Would there be a strategy in place? Would there be collaborations to ensure that the state governors do the needful? Because even the 30,000 naira minimum wage, not all of the state governors actually implemented it. And if we are going to have a new national minimum wage conversation in the next 3 years, don't you think organized labor is supposed to start engaging now?
Yes, some states are going to implement immediately, as you know. Some states will implement immediately. So we are going to take stock of, discussing with our respective state councils. We will take stocks of those states that are implementing immediately. So we will take note of them. So there is no need to engage those states that will start implementation almost now. But when we will now find out, we are not going to check the states that does not that is not implementing the minimum wage. So for those states, we are going to engage them. But first of all, the minimum was just signed last week, and now we are entering the month of August. So our expectation is that let's see what is going to happen at the end of August when the wage bill is being paid. So when we see that at the end of August, we will not tally those states that are not paying, then we will not be able to engage them. But we are going to work closely with our respective state councils. We will collect the reports of our respective state councils. So effective next week, the respective state councils will be engaging their governors and they'll be giving us reports. So based on those, on the report that we are going to receive, we will now know where to start from.
It was observed during the agreement between organized labor and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The organized labor gave 3 salutations, if I'm right, to the President. I don't know if you would want to tell us why that was needful.
Yes, thank you so much, Sharon, for this question, because a lot of people actually misconstrue it. You know, when we started the conversation, before the press came in, we already concluded on the issue of minimum wage. But just as the press was about coming in, the president of NLC and also myself, we raised on that same day, SANU and NASU, they had a protest in Abuja. They were on the street while we were in the villa meeting with the president. So we felt that as organized labor, we are one. So we now raised their subject before the president. The president of NLC started it, so I joined him in appealing to the president that yes, we understand the law, we understand, but we should also look at what made them to go on that strike. It's also because the government did not fulfill its own side of the bargain. So after that push, that the president should pay them their withheld salaries. So when we raised that, the president actually asked the Minister of Education, Minister of Finance, and his lieutenant to go and compute what the amount is, bringing it to him for him to approve for the payment to be made. So immediately he said that there was some level of pushback, not directly, but you could see that subtle from his lieutenant, They weren't too comfortable, with the 4 months the president talked about. So that pushback kept coming softly and all that. But the president now overruled them. That is the president of the Federal Republic, and the buck stops at his table, that at the end, he's going to do the needful. So it was based on that assurance that the president gave. And also overruling his lieutenant. That was actually the reason we now sang Solidarity song and we now gave him the salutation. In the struggle for Nigeria, there is victory. Kill Africa. Africa is Soleto. Aluta. Continua. Victoria. Asata. Triposa to the president. Goza. Goza. Goza.
Thank you very much for that information. We do appreciate your time on the show. And that's all we can take on this edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.